Good morning, Chairman. We are now live.
Good morning, and welcome everyone present in the chamber and those listening online to the business of the Growth Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Sam French and I am the chairman of this committee. Councillor Reuben Robinson, Vice Chairman, is also present. The audio-visual feed of this formal public meeting is being broadcasted live via the County Council's website, and all your comments will remain accessible online. There's no fire drill planned this morning. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, please leave the chamber, exit the building through the reception and assemble in the front car park that way. Any mobile phones, laptops and iPads, please put on silent mode as the hearing loop is now activated. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman. Please indicate if you want to speak. And we'll now move on to the formal agenda. Apologies for absence. Councillor... Oh. Yeah. Councillor Alistair Arundel, no replacement submitted. Councillor Bowles, no replacement submitted. And Councillor Woodruff, replaced by Councillor Reeve for this meeting only.
Chairman, just whilst we're on apologies, is the executive member in attendance virtually? He's not in the chamber, I don't believe. No, okay, so the executive member isn't present for the first meeting of the committee, is that correct?
Yes, he was sent a calendar invite to this meeting, was notified of the meeting as is all members when we publish the papers as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. On to the declaration of members' interests. This is an opportunity for members to declare any pecuniary or other interests. Do members wish to declare any? All right, please let the record reflect that nobody's declared any interests. And onto the minutes of the meeting of the previous, what was known as Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee on the 11th of March 2025. This item is held to approve and sign the minutes of the last meeting as a correct record. Please turn to pages 5 to 20 of the agenda. Members are reminded that we are considering the minutes of the previous committee that was decommissioned on the 23rd of May 2025, and in relation to them being a correct record rather than in relation to whether members were present for that meeting. With this in mind, do I have a proposer? I'll propose. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you.
We'll now vote on
Chairman, I've just got a question, if I may, on the minutes, if that's okay. On the minutes of the last agenda within the work programme, for the committee dated 10th of June, which is today, there was 4 items scheduled. One of those, I assume, has gone to the new Environment Committee, but the other 3, broadband programme, Deddlethorpe Geological Disposal Facility Working Group update, I mean, we appreciate what that update would be, and LCC tenant satisfaction portfolio performance should have been coming to this committee meeting today. That doesn't appear to be the case, and the agenda for today's meeting is incredibly light, and it's nothing more than a briefing from officers, which could have essentially been done as a team call. So I'm just wondering why the work programme has been changed and important items to discuss have been removed from the agenda for this committee meeting. I think when I've queried this, officers have said it's normal practice to have an introductory meeting, but the first meeting of the Environment and Economy Committee in 2021 had quite a heavy agenda and it wasn't an introductory meeting. So if you or officers could clarify why that's the case, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we'll get back to your question when we're at the part of the agenda where we can ask questions. But I would...
It's a question on the minutes, Chairman.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yep.
Thank you very much indeed. So in relation to this meeting agenda for today's meeting, some items, as you correctly identified, have been removed. There have been some changes made, but let me assure you that these items have not just vanished from the work programme, they have been rather deferred. So in relation to items such as the biodiversity net gain item, as you correctly identified, this is now within the remit of another scrutiny committee, which is the Environment Scrutiny Committee, and has thus been incorporated into their work programme. In relation to the item on broadband, This has now been scheduled for the 9th of September. LCC can only deliver broadband when the businesses which are delivering the government's Project Gigabit programme have confirmed exactly when they will deliver. On the 28th of May, it was discovered that the government's implementation plans were delayed, and thus it will take another 2 months before they are confirmed, and therefore this is the reason why the paper has not been included and has been deferred. In relation to the LCC tenant satisfaction item, there is a paper on economic investment on the programme for the 29th of July of this Scrutiny Committee, and one of the considerations of the committee in determining the way forward is customer satisfaction as well as economic opportunity. There is therefore greater value in discussing tenant satisfaction at that same meeting as the economic investment paper will come in. And there will be a further update on the 29th of July to confirm that tenant satisfaction is running at more than 90%. That has been the update from leading officers. And lastly, in relation to the Thedlethorpe Geological Disposal Facility, let me give you assurances that this item is currently under consideration and there will be reporting in future meetings. And I hope this satisfies. But if there are further questions, I'm happy to take them offline with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Thank you for the answer. We just proposed a vote on the minutes, so we'll take that vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's 5-4-0 against, 1 abstention. Thank you for those. Thank you. Those minutes are agreed as correct. On to announcements by the chairman, executive councillors and lead officers. Chairman announcements. As we convene for the first meeting of the newly established Growth Committee, I extend a warm welcome to all members, both returning and new. This committee succeeds the former Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee, and I believe we have an important role to play here, as the financially educated will know one of the best ways to get out of the debt that the council has is to grow your way out of it. So I think we've all got a good role to play here. And before we move on to today's business, I'd like to briefly mention the induction programme for newly elected members. As part of this, an introductory session on the Place Directive, which encompasses many of the key service areas relevant to this committee, was held on the 29th of May. The recording of that session, along with the accompanying presentation materials, is available on the Council Hub on the intranet. Under the induction section, it provides a helpful foundation for understanding the wider context in which this committee operates. As part of today's agenda, we will also be receiving an introduction to the particular service areas that feed into this committee. Thank you. Moving on to the Executive Council announcements. The Executive is not present, is the support? Okay, so I have a question from Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I echo Councillor Dyer's comments about the absence of a lead councillor, executive councillor. I wanted to ask about the interface between the mayoral committees for employment and enterprise and this committee, and how they saw the interface working. How are we going to integrate between the two? But they're not here, so I can't ask the question.
Chiara, would you like to answer?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Baxter. We will take that back and we will liaise with the executive portfolio holder and supporting portfolio holder to get a response to this and circulate to members if that would be okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Will I have to wait till the next meeting for that answer, or will it be sooner?
No, Councillor Baxter, it will be done as soon as we get a response. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And on to the main agenda, or senior officer announcements, my apologies. Justin Brown.
Chairman, thank you. I need to give a brief announcement about tourism, and particularly the demise of destination Lincolnshire. an organisation which was charged with promoting tourism and with coordinating a public-private partnership around tourism. And I will bring a full paper to the next meeting, but at the moment the various pieces of the jigsaw are still moving, so it's inappropriate to bring one today. But for information, the business ceased trading during week commencing 19th of May, and that led to a gap in terms of tourism promotion and a gap in terms of the public-private relationship with the government's organisation Visit England. So we've worked closely with colleagues in district councils over the past 2 weeks. We have increased the promotion that we carry out on the Visit Lincolnshire website. So whereas previously we were running 1 or 2 social media posts a week, we were running the odd commercial newsletter, etc. We've moved to 4 media posts, 2 consumer newsletters, and we've hosted 4 travel journalism visits in the past 2 to 3 weeks. We are continuing to work with district councils on populating the website with the various events that are taking place across Lincolnshire, events being something that tourists are particularly interested in visiting, and ourselves and the mayoral team, relating to Councillor Baxter's question, have spoken to Visit England about how we can fill the gap around that public-private partnership. Visit England are sticking very close to a very tightly defined model of partnership which we are not convinced fits with the local tourism sector. And there are some meetings later this week to continue those discussions and to push back. So in terms of the update, if members were concerned in any way about gap in activity, very short term we have stepped in, we are carrying out more activity, and by the time of the next scrutiny committee I'll be in a position to bring a paper which describes a bit more around the strategy and a bit more around the role the County Council will take in terms of greater levels of promotion. So as I say, I'll bring a full paper to our next meeting.
Thank you. A question from Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Justin. Interesting what you said about Visit England's position. And I don't want to, well, I'm going to preempt what's going to come out of further discussions with yourself and the Mayor's office, but do you foresee any negative implications that if we were to work outside of that very prescribed model, that there would be negative funding implications for us?
I believe it's information only, correct, but if you want to answer, then.
Just to say that the amount of funding that flows from Visit England to local areas is relatively small. We are weighing up the pros and cons, seeing what the risk may be. I don't want us to be in a situation where we don't have a relationship with Visit England, but it's got to be a relationship which is affordable and deliverable, and that's the bit we're currently negotiating over.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. Could I ask Mr Brown, please, the demise of Destination Lincolnshire, I mean, it's sad and irritating from my point of view. Is the County Council out of pocket because of the decision, and if so, how much? Or have we got more available budget, and if so, how much? And also, what now is the status of the LVEP? Because Destination Lincolnshire was acting as the LVEP. Who now does that LVEP job?
So as I say, I will bring a full paper to the next meeting. Are we out of pocket? No. The funding that we were contracting to the organisation was relatively small, and it was on a month-by-month call-off basis, and therefore we've been able to move that money across and carry out the activity independently. The LVEP for members information is the public-private partnership, which is accredited by Visit England, and that is the partnership that we are still working through with Visit England, the Mayor's Office and ourselves, how we take that forward in an affordable way. And I do hope that within 6 weeks and the next meeting I'll know a lot more about that.
Ruben, as Councillor Robinson, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. A very quick question. What sort of plans do you have for Visit Lincolnshire going in the future? Do you have any big sort of ideas which you want to kind of push forward? And also, how do you kind of measure the success of Visit England? And would there be any outreach of maybe separating this into sort of minor areas as well, things like Visit Lincoln, Visit Skegness, etc.? Thank you.
So, strategically, we'll cover a lot of this in that paper next month, but we do a lot of work around analysing which people are taking holidays and which attractions, etc., we have in Lincolnshire where we can match across. So, for example, we know that typically young couples, weekend breaks are increasingly seeing Lincoln as a place to come, so we would focus around that. Similarly, we recognise that families will typically enjoy coastal breaks, and we will market around that. So I'll bring a lot more in that paper in July, and by I mean Samantha sitting at the end there, by the way. In terms of the approach, we've always taken the view that having a Lincolnshire strategy, which then directs people to local areas, is the best way of capturing potential visitors. And we assess the impact through a range of measures, a little bit of which will be in the induction slides in a moment, but some of it that we assess is around the amount of trade which results from the website that we use. Some of it is about looking at the volume of the sector and how it is growing, etc.
All right, thank you. So on to the main agenda, unless there's any more officer announcements. No, okay. On to the main agenda. The scrutiny report can be found on pages 21 to 24. The report outlines the remit and responsibilities of this newly established committee. It defines the committee's formal powers to review and scrutinise a range of services and its ability to monitor performance, challenge decision-making, influence policy development, and provide advice to the executive. It also explains how scrutiny operates the support roles of officers and how the committee fits within the broader governance and scrutiny framework. Actions for this committee. Members of this committee are invited to consider and comment on the role and remit of the Growth Scrutiny Committee. The report will be presented by Chiara Hatsioanu, our designated scrutiny officer. Before I hand over to Ms. Hatsioanu, please note that we will take questions later when we have had the opportunity to receive presentations as part of item 6, and therefore the resolution to this item and the next will be taken later jointly. Over to you, Ms. Hatsioanu.
Thank you very much. Chairman and members, item 5 provides a formal overview of the remit and functions of the newly established Growth Scrutiny Committee. This committee succeeds the former Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee, as we've heard already, with a revised focus on areas that directly support economic growth, infrastructure, and place-based development across Lincolnshire. The committee's scope includes scrutiny of services and policy relating to economic development, inward investment, regeneration, digital and broadband infrastructure, procurement, commercial activity, corporate property, tourism, and skills, amongst others. It also encompasses oversight of the strategic growth partnerships, such as the Greater Lincolnshire Local Enterprise Partnership and the Emerging Combined County Authority. Your role as a scrutiny committee is to provide constructive challenge, to contribute to policy development, and to ensure transparency and accountability in relation to executive decisions. While not a decision-making body, this committee can influence outcomes through considering recommendations, evidence-led inquiry and timely intervention, particularly where service delivery or strategic direction could be strengthened. You are supported in your work by the Democratic Services team, who will ensure the efficient administration of the committee, as well as advise members, support you in the development of the work programme, and providing you with analytical and procedural support. In the months ahead, you will consider a range of pre-decision and performance items and may, where appropriate, commission reviews or invite external partners to provide evidence on matters of strategic importance. Members are encouraged to contribute to the development of the work programme, as it will be highlighted again later throughout the last item to be taken on today's agenda, and also to raise issues that you feel warrant a deeper exploration. And I invite members to note the remit as set out in this report and to consider how you may best approach your scrutiny role to support economic resilience and inclusive growth in Lincolnshire. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 6, introduction to service areas under the purview of the Growth Scrutiny Committee. I'll shortly turn to the senior officers for their individual presentations, the aim of which is to inform members of the committee of the elements of the newly developed growth portfolio which fall into our remit. Our actions are to consider the presentations, submit questions to gain a deeper understanding of the themes and the topics that fall within the remit of this committee, and endorse the presentations and verbal updates to be received. We will begin with the presentation by Justin Brown, Assistant Director of Growth, then move on to Andrew McLean, Assistant Director of Transformation, Systems and Performance, and lastly, Victoria Eaton, Assistant Director of Commercial. Other leading officers from each service area are also present to facilitate the discussions. We'll take the questions at the end of each presentation. Please indicate early when you would like to speak. Over to you, Mr. Brown.
Chairman, thank you. I think Andrew's firing up some slides. Yep, okay. So, in terms of my introduction, I'll probably explain that a lot of what we do is very data-driven. So it is driven very much by statistical information about both the strengths and weaknesses of the local economy. Many of the services are front-facing, and therefore you'll see in the proposed work programme that there are a lot of the papers relate to our services. But I think it's really important to stress that having property and commercial and procurement services alongside growth services gives us the chance to really use the council's positioning and its financial power to the benefit of the economy. So I think that's really, really valuable. And in terms of this presentation, hopefully it will feed into the work programme. So as well as anything you'd like to clarify with us, then we'd really welcome the things that interest you in terms of the way you want to scrutinise things. And that will help us in terms of the way that we prepare papers into the future. And before we move on to the next slide, something for you to recognise is that regeneration funding is really important to our services. So we have a net budget which is relatively small, it's £3.5 million, but our gross budget is about 12 million in terms of revenue, and it probably extends by another 4 or 5 million pounds in terms of capital grants. So when we talk about things, there's a lot which is about the way we've managed to attract funding to help us to extend our services. Next slide, please, Andrew. And there are some photographs of a very young team. So obviously I look a lot older because it was my birthday yesterday. But if I can introduce you to, from the right, Vanessa Strange, Mick King, Samantha Harrison. So in broad terms, Vanessa's role is to lead around the big business sectors and around the big government investments into the county. Mick's role is to lead in terms of providing business premises and industrial land for the business community, and Samantha's role is to lead on a set of largely revenue-based services around business and around securing private sector investment. Thanks, Andrew. So, a few statistics. As I say, we are very data-driven, and I sort of see the economy in these 6 boxes. So the first one is that the economy of Lincolnshire ranges anywhere between 15 and 19 billion, depending upon how you count it. So it is a significant value in terms of the nation's finances, and often our economy has a lot of real strengths, but they're a bit hidden. In terms of sectors, we have a series of very important sectors. So it's very interesting to see that if you look at agri-food, agri-tech, it's the source of, look at that, 43% of new jobs in the area. So very important. Our manufacturing sector is growing. Nationally, manufacturing is just shrinking a little bit, but ours is growing. And our defence sector is growing particularly fast, based around cybersecurity and around technology. We are, of course, an economy of small businesses, but I think it is really, really important to remember that large businesses employ a significant amount of our workforce, 36%. So we always have a bit of a strategic challenge between working with those big strategic businesses who create jobs, create investment, and working with the smaller everyday economy businesses. Labour market we'll talk a little bit more about in a slide that's coming up, but one of the things I think is very important is that productivity in the county is lower than average. It's 14% lower than average. Series of factors around that, not least the fact that it is a large rural area and people have to travel, goods have to travel, etc. The barriers to business growth are important. You'll see more than half of the businesses that were surveyed have described access to premises, access to money, and access to labour as being particular constraints to them. But they also identify a number of others that you can see at the bottom there. And then finally, whilst we are particularly focused on economic growth, you can't decouple economy and housing, and there are some really, really interesting points in there, particularly the fact that housing numbers and targets have increased significantly, and that puts a real pressure on both the private sector and the local planning authorities to address. And if you look at the growth in the 60 plus age group, it's greater in Lincolnshire than it is in the country, and that puts us a challenge in terms of affordability, in terms of housing design, etc. So those are the sorts of basic pieces of data that we are addressing. Next one, please, Andrew. Next slide, thanks. So I'm going to focus around 3 main things about business, workforce, and infrastructure. So we have a series of economic portfolio properties spread across the county, managed by Mick and his team, and we have something like 170 businesses who are renting space from us, and we will talk more about them at the next meeting. But what we're particularly interested in is ensuring and remembering that figure of more than 50% of businesses constrained by a lack of premises. We're particularly keen to make sure that we continue to invest to provide more premises where the market is failing. And we will bring a paper next time around an economic investment programme with a particular focus around sectors. So yes, food, defence, manufacturing as I described, but also around extending facilities in some other parts of the county. Next one, Andrew. So as well as providing business premises, we also provide advice and support. So whenever you as members are speaking to businesses and they say to you, I would like a grant, I've got a problem, etc., please do direct them to businesslincolnshire.com. And I've just put the front page up there, but businesslincolnshire.com is an information source led by Samantha's team, and which provides really a Bible of information for the business community. And we also have a team of advisors, and we would typically in a year assist around about 2,500 businesses. But we also recognise that we need to attract business in and to help those bigger businesses to invest. So we've got a series of data-led programmes around supporting different sectors, and we have a group of people who go out and meet the biggest businesses in the county and support them in terms of their investment, and they support them in terms of helping to influence head office, which may often be overseas, to invest in the area. Next one, Andrew. And in terms of tourism, so we have, as I said, visitlincolnshire.com, a really effective website, and what I think is really interesting is the bottom left panel on there. So at the moment we are seeing something like 16% of people using the website moving on to book something. Now, the national average is between 4 and 5%. So that is a significant increase, but we've got to make sure that we don't rest on our laurels. So we'll bring a paper on that next time. Employment and skills. So there is a narrative changing at the moment with government where they've typically invested in skills and in training, and increasingly over the last year or so, they've been investing more in tackling unemployment. And these three columns I find particularly fascinating, which might tell you something about my personality. But in terms of the workforce, we've got 663,000 people of working age. And of those, as you can see up there, something like 496,000 economically active, 167,000 inactive. And so when we talk about economically active, that is both people in a job and people who are actively seeking employment. So that's about 24,000 people actively seeking employment. But we have about 167,000 who are economically inactive, and particularly 58,000 people who are long-term sick. So if you think that at any time there's about 60,000 jobs available in the economy, the number of people who are unemployed doesn't map across to those jobs. So we are working on some programs which are about tackling economic inactivity as well as unemployment. Andrew, thanks.
A question from Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. I've got a question related particularly to that slide. Could you go back one, please? Thanks. I don't know many students who are not working in some form or other. So students who are economically inactive, are there some students that are in the green, or are we just looking at students who are inactive? And secondly, have you got any of these figures split by gender? So are women more likely or less likely to be economically inactive in your terms?
So these are the Office of National Statistics terms rather than mine. And in terms of students, those are registered in terms of full-time students. So yes, I accept the point that many students will have a job on top of their student, on top of their education. But in terms of the way we're looking at this is partly about saying how many unfilled jobs are there in comparison to the various people within the labour market. So we're looking at a supply and demand thing, which means that the jobs that students will be carrying out will be being counted within the employment. And what I'm concerned about is the bit where businesses are saying to us 56% of businesses are constrained by a lack of staff. So we are going to work through that data. I have got from Department of Work and Pensions a whole stack of data around age, gender, etc. I don't have it to hand, but when we bring a paper about this, we'll absolutely break it down. It's really, really detailed and valuable information held by Department for Work and Pensions. Next one, Andrew.
I've got a question from Councillor Robinson, and then I'll get to you.
Thank you. When it comes down to employment, is that mixed? Is that full-time employment? Is that mixed employment? Is that 0 hours contracts? How is that kind of split? And if you know the information, what sort of percentage-wise are full employed compared to the rest of the country? Are we higher up in Lincolnshire? Are there more? Like, what's the sort of demographics around that area, please? Thank you.
Okay, so the in employment is absolutely people with a contract of employment registered with HMRC. So that will be how we count that. Typically in the Lincolnshire economy, we are above average when it comes to things like long-term unemployment for 18 to 25-year-olds, long-term unemployment for 55 plus, and we do have more in what I would call informal employment, so things like 0 hours and short-term contracts, just by the nature as much of anything of the seasonality of the economy.
Thank you. And a question from Councillor Condell.
From the student perspective, I know we're saying that, you know, a lot that are or do have some employment. I know a lot that don't. What are we doing to encourage the students to get employment and help employers to employ them?
So, on this slide, thank you. We typically train in the order of about 8,000 people a year. Over the next couple of years, we're expecting that to go up to somewhere between 12 and 13,000, given the various funding streams. And realistically, we have at the moment 3 main products that we use. So the first one, top left, is called Skills Boot Camps. And that's typically for people who are in employment who need a short, sharp piece of training to help them to learn a particular skill that their employer requires. So that might be anything from repairing heat source, ground source heat pumps, through to being able to site a caravan on a caravan site or something like that. So very, very specific skills. We train about 2,000 people a year in that. We have a program called Careers and Enterprise Hub, which is all about going into schools and getting employers to go into schools. And that's all about telling young people about the economy and about the careers that they can have. And we're in nearly every school in the county now. And then we have an adult skills and learning service of about 6,000 people a year that we're training. And that service is typically providing literacy, numeracy, basic skills, the type of things that people need for entry-level employment. We're not the only player in adult skills, so the colleges, of course, will be delivering things, the universities will be delivering things, and the private sector will. But that's sort of the things that we are doing at the moment.
Sorry, and just follow up that, and you're saying that we as Lincolnshire Council provide that outside of colleges and schools?
So we commission the services from a range of people. some of that is private training providers, some of it is the colleges. The way that government routes skills and employment funding is extraordinary, and sometimes having somebody like the County Council in there to manage the route of the funding gives us an advantage that wouldn't otherwise happen. Okay, next one then, Andrew. So finally on to economic infrastructure. And I think there's a couple of really, really interesting issues for us to address in terms of infrastructure. The first one is water stress. And what you'll see from that slide on the left is that the darker the colour, the bigger problem that there is in terms of water supply. Now, if you think of any industry that is in the county, it will be using significant amounts of water in its operations. And if you think about the amount of house building that is taking place, there is a need obviously for water supply, but also for wastewater. So the fact that we are the second darkest red on the map of the east of England is a significant concern for us. Now, water companies are companies, and therefore they are looking for investable propositions. And part of our job is to create the investable propositions that enable them to say, yes, I will invest there. Similarly, and you'll have to squint even more on the power slide on the right-hand side, but what I hope you can see is rather more red dots than you can see green dots. And what that essentially is a piece of work which sets out the scale of demand that we have for power in the county versus the scale of supply. So obviously red is a problem, amber is a bit of a problem, and green is okay. And so we've got a significant challenge in terms of working with the energy companies, same problem about investable propositions again, to enable us to gain that power and to be able to take things forward. Vanessa and her team lead on that work, but for some evidence, some of the things that Mick has had to do in terms of gaining power for industrial estates mean that there is a real significant challenge. And if it's a challenge for us, it's a challenge for every investor. So those feel like really important infrastructure barriers. Next one, Andrew, please.
Got a question from Councillor Corey.
And apologies, and thank you for your indulgence, Chairman. I know you did say take questions at the end, but going back to that water stress picture, Justin, I know you that our water supplier in Lincolnshire and across that map is Anglian Water, and they're a private company owned by shareholders, as you highlighted. So Lincolnshire, as you mentioned, has got the second highest water stress in the Anglian Water region, and water stress is a constraint on economic development. So have you had any conversations with Anglian Water why they're piping or building a pipeline from Lincolnshire to Essex, which has got far lesser water stress than Lincolnshire?
So, yes, we have, and part of the strategy around that is to ensure that some of that water is actually routed locally as opposed to it going to Essex. And I think some of the narrative that Anglian Water have allowed isn't quite right. They've always had plans to use some of that water locally. But certainly from our point of view, we have to be stronger at making the case for that investment, because the general view is that moving water into the Cambridge, Milton Keynes arc is the place where the growth will take place. So we will be working through various business cases, various strategies, which we hope to bring to this committee to help to strengthen and make that case. Water is a tricky one, isn't it? Because the other side of water is flooding, and we have significant problems which are dealt with a different scrutiny committee, obviously. But in terms of water, the whole debate is a significant one of supply, of flood, of sewage, etc. Strategically, the water companies want to talk to developers, and therefore what we need to do in making business cases is focus absolutely on the economics and the growth case. And next to last slide, so sectors, business sectors also, as I said, really important. I haven't mentioned defence sector and manufacturing sector and so on, but a couple of things to really outline. On the left, the STEP programme, which is a fusion programme, which is a new facility being built just over the water from Gainsborough. It's in Nottinghamshire, but the opportunities for us are really significant. We propose giving you a briefing paper on the subject at the next meeting, but essentially STEP in West Burton is not about creating power. It is about creating a knowledge-based industry that the UK can sell across the world. And therefore, our work so far has been very much on helping Lincolnshire businesses, Lincolnshire students, etc., to be part of the way that the government creates that new business, that new sector, and that we get global opportunities on the back of it. You've got to hold your breath a bit. It's going to be 15 to 20 years before it's built. But actually, being part of the build now is still a significant opportunity for the county. And finally, UK Food Valley. So the food sector is very, very strong. And we are really a technical sector which is leading the way in terms of automation. I know Councillor French and I spoke about autonomous vehicles and AI and how they can really drive up productivity in the food technology sector. Our colleges and universities are really strong in that sector, but actually we have a role in terms of brokerage, in terms of leadership, in terms of support, and that's something that I suspect we will bring here on several occasions over the next 4 years. And final slide then. So, quickly in summary, and apologies to Andrew and Vic because we said we'd all be 10 minutes and I've been rather more than that. But essentially in summary, we're very data driven. I hope you can see the golden thread that runs from the data through to the activities. We've focused around those three headings: business, workforce and economic conditions. Very, very strong engagement with the business community and with other stakeholders. I've talked about businesses, colleges, universities, etc. We also have a strong relationship with Chambers of Commerce, Federation of Small Business, etc. And going back to the very first point I made, as a growth scrutiny committee, I think you've got great opportunity to link and strengthen the link between economy, property and procurement to deliver significant benefit. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Are there any more questions? I think Councillor Baxter raised his hand earlier and put it back down, so would you like to talk now?
Yeah, yes, please. Thank you. About the STEP tokamak or whatever it was called, are we paying for that?
No. No, it's a national initiative.
So how do we, in terms of scrutiny, it's something that we're not contributing to financially, and it's outside of Lincolnshire, and it's not going to happen for another 15 years. From here, what can I do to affect that?
So, as a team, we will be seeking ways of helping local business to get opportunities. We'll be working with education and learning providers to get training opportunities, and we'll be working with the promoter of the scheme to create investment in the area, Section 106, etc. Now, from a scrutiny perspective, you presumably will be wanting to assess whether we're doing too much, too little, whether we're being successful or not, how you think we are missing certain things. So I see the scrutiny as you describe, Councillor Baxter, as being very much around testing and assessing the strategies that we are using and exploring the outcomes that we're achieving.
So to follow up, I still don't get it. It's not in Lincolnshire, and so are we training people up in order that they can leave Lincolnshire and earn money in Nottinghamshire, or are you expecting that they will expand and come into Lincolnshire, and it's an industry that is unknown anyway? I don't understand why we would be putting that as kind of a first episode on the slide of the future, when we've got so much within Lincolnshire that we could be promoting before we get to Retford or anywhere else.
So I'd hope that I gave an overview of a series of things as opposed to simply step, but it's about 4 miles across Trent Bridge from Gainsborough, and there will be significant opportunities in terms of things like business parks, which will probably be in the nearest town, i.e. Gainsborough. There will be significant opportunities for people like the University of Lincoln and Lincoln College to expand, which creates opportunities that are both for STEP but also transferable elsewhere in the economy, as well as creating stronger institutions in their own rights. So we'll put all of that into the briefing note for the next meeting, but certainly from our perspective, the fact that it is 3 or 4 miles over the county boundary is no different to the way we work in partnership with food tech in the Cambridgeshire and Norfolk area, no different to some of the conversations that we're having with Rutland about tourism and its relationship with Stamford and things like that. So I'm less concerned than you about that. We'll put a lot of that into the briefing paper and maybe can come back to it into the future. And even though it will take a long time to be completed, work has started. Things are happening there, and there are opportunities now for businesses and people.
All right. Question from Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for that response, Justin. I think it's so close to the Lincolnshire boundary. I think we'd be foolish and naive, quite frankly, not to be involved with it, Councillor Baxter. I'm not calling you naive, so let's not put in a complaint. But just one thing that wasn't mentioned, Justin, in your report, which is obviously a massive part of the growth agenda in Lincolnshire now, is the relationship between this authority and the new mayoral combined authority. Now, I appreciate that organisation has its own scrutiny functions and bodies that has representatives from this council and also from the district councils. But the picture that you've painted today is only really half a story with what is going on now in respect to the growth agenda and how you work, I'm sure you do, closely with the mayoral combined authority. So my question really is, how are we as a committee, or are we, going to have information fed to us in respect to the operations of the mayoral combined authority? I appreciate that's not within the remit of this council, but when we think about the growth agenda, we think about the funds being given out by the mayoral combined authority, UK, SBF, etc. Really, we're only looking at half of the picture, this committee here. So I'm just wondering what is being set up in the early days of that authority to see how that information is being fed here to us. And obviously as a lowly opposition councillor now, all of those scrutiny positions on the mayoral combined authority are all filled by members of the ruling group, which is fine, and that's part of the devolution deal we agreed. But I do think this committee still has a role to play in that. So probably, if you can shine any light on that, Justin, I'd appreciate that. But all democratic services. My second question, and it's just on the item 5, the role of the Growth Scrutiny Committee, because you did mention we could ask questions on that as well, Chairman. I do note the new executive member who's joined us, but it's put a list, terms of reference, what we scrutinise as a committee. But what it hasn't mentioned is veterans and veterans affairs. And conversation, Councillor Kelly, haven't we, about veterans affairs? And I'm pleased to see that in his remit, his portfolio, and the council's taken an interest in that, which is a good move. So I'd just be curious to know as to why that's not included within the terms of reference of this committee. Because when we think about the council as an employer and employing veterans and the work that your team does, Justin, in supporting veterans, I do think we have a role to play there. And it would be nice, given that it has an explicit, it was explicitly mentioned at the, you know, in your title, Councillor Kelly. I think it's a shame that it's not in the terms of reference for this committee. I think we're missing a trick, really, if we're not supporting Councillor Kelly in his work in Veterans Affairs. So they're my 2 points for now, Chairman. Thank you.
So if I take point 1 and Chiara takes point 2. So in terms of combined authority, it is of course very early days, and we are still working through the processes, and you're absolutely right that we do work very closely with the Mayor's team. One thing I would reflect on is that the approach of having a mayor gives you a really significant platform in terms of attracting investment. So we had a Greater Lincolnshire presence at an inward investment event 3 weeks ago. And on both of the sessions where the mayor was in attendance, we were really packed in terms of people visiting and so on. So completely agree, and I would reflect that the opportunity that having a combined authority has to work with big private investors is significant. I'm recognising, I think that's the third time the relationship between combined authority and this committee's been referenced. So what I will do is work with Dem Services to develop something that we can bring here so that we can look at how that works. Early days, can't answer it yet, but we'll bring something as soon as we can.
Thank you very much. And some reassurance from this end. The terms of reference were agreed in advance to the AGM meeting, where they were considered and ratified. And there will be plenty of opportunity to work with the portfolio holder, with members and with leading officers in looking at ways that we can make positive interventions that encompass all elements that are being fed into scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for both of those responses. Just, Chiara, just on that point, I appreciate it might have been agreed before then, but is this going to be amended now to include Veterans Affairs?
Amendments are not something that lays within the remit of this committee. And what I mean here is that for any amendment to be ratified, it needs to go to the next available council meeting where it can be ratified. So I will work with colleagues offline, and if you don't mind, I will get back to you in terms of a clear response in relation to when this can be amendment and how it will be formally amended. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly, would you like to have an input on that?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Baxter, first of all, in regards to your STEP question, until last week I knew nothing about STEP, so I sat down with an hour and a half and went through STEP in its entirety with a focus on how much is it costing us as a council at this moment in time, because that was one of the key things from my perspective was, are we getting value for what we're putting in, and what are the benefits near term, medium term, long term, etc. I am very content with what's going on at this moment in time. I am getting a detailed response back in regards to what is the current cost, which I believe is negligible. We are seed corning for future growth, and obviously, as Justin rightly pointed out, that even though the location is in Nottinghamshire, it will provide maximum benefit to Lincolnshire because of, you know, it has the main MSRs and everything else and the employment field, etc., around that location. So it is a good project going forward that does require our support, I would suggest. And also the other benefits from it is not only growth, but the byproducts is helium, and helium will, you know, will have a big market in itself, and also the fact that, you know, the carbon footprint, etc., as well. In regards to the mayoral committees, Councillor Sheard is getting back to me. I know that the mayoral team are looking at meetings, are looking at strategy, are looking at terms of reference, etc. as well, but also ensuring that all of it accommodates for change management and builds in a level of flexibility. So more detail will come out of that in due course, and that will be promulgated. And in regards to Veterans Affairs, at this moment in time, as you're aware, the Mayor is very keen on all Veterans Affairs matters, and we're currently scoping with other organisations, veterans villages around Lincolnshire. So those are moving forward, and we hope to you know, go a bit more solid on those in the near future and provide you with all that information accordingly. But as everybody is a stakeholder in regards to those matters, yeah, more than happy, more than content for everything to be scrutinised, because everybody adds value, and ultimately, you know, that value add, you know, is in regards to the well-being of veterans. So yeah, point well made and well understood there, Councillor Dyer, sorry.
That's twice in 2 days that Councillor
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Reeve has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the STEP project at West Burton, I've been following it since its inception. Went along last week to the presentation at the Gainsborough Trinity Arts Centre. It's a fantastic thing. Gainsborough's got a fantastic engineering heritage that's slowly declining, and this could really bring it back. It's going to be fantastic for the area. Whether it ever works or not is another matter. They're pretty convinced it will work, but there's no guarantees with it. One concern that I do have going forward is that you stated early on that one of the big things that people want to come out of this is be able to sell the technology on around the world in the future, should it all work, or should the developments they come up with work. I asked them at the presentation about such as Chinese, Russians stealing that information and selling it on themselves. They didn't seem to think it was a particular concern. I personally find that a big concern. I don't know if this committee can have any influence on securing that sort of knowledge and making sure it doesn't escape, but it's something to me that is something that should be looked at by somebody somewhere.
So I think you're right. I think that's probably one for the promoter of the scheme rather than us. But I think you raise a really interesting point about international trade and about how we as a council support and promote international trade. And we will probably want to explore with you some strategies around target regions, target opportunities, which will partly be influenced by things like leveraging STEP, but will also be influenced by the products we have and by the political guide that you give us. So, yeah, one for the promoter, but actually you've raised a point that probably Samantha and I need to put our heads together on and think about how we bring something for a discussion with you.
And Councillor Corey.
Thank you. Justin, back to your bit about GVA. And you said that Lincolnshire is 14% lower than the UK average. And you touched on a few reasons. Do you have detailed data on this? For example, is it a worsening picture, an improving picture, or just bobbing along? And I'm happy to receive that data via email or in a further paper. Thank you.
We've got a large piece of research taking place at the moment. It's about a month away from being signed off, and that will give us a better picture. But I think bobbing along is probably the most accurate description of where we're at the moment. We're certainly seeing some productivity gain in some sectors, but the lack of investment is causing a problem on the other side. So we'll have some data, but it's not quite ready yet.
Thank you. Just a quick supplementary on that. So it's that 14% is a flat average, and some sectors are better and some significantly worse than others. I'll be really interested to get that data. Thank you.
All right, are there any more questions?
Justin, just a quick question about the fusion power. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this, but if it's 15 to 20 years down the line, will this sort of be a sort of HS2 effect where once it's built, it will be technology which is outdated? And another thing is, I mean, I presume this is a private and public sector movement or combination? And also, if the primary export of this is the technology, and to create jobs and skills rather than actually create electric, what it's supposed to do, how are they going to sell it overseas if the whole point of it is to create electric and it's not doing that? If that makes sense. Thank you.
So this is a public government-led agency which has got a series of private investments and private partnerships within it. When I said its purpose is not to generate electricity, what I meant was that's a very much second or even tertiary purpose. So it will generate a bit. They have got various processes in place which will achieve some power generation, but that, as I say, is not the number one objective. I and a few others were lucky enough to visit the current head office of the agency, which is in Oxfordshire, and you really see a global sector being created there, and that will be the focus. It's not really for us to sort of comment on the technology and the sort of the application, because that's very much a national thing. I'm thinking about how we capture, but certainly looking at the way that the programme management is in place, there are regular threshold checks where people are looking in and going, is this still the right direction? And there's a lot of learning from big civil projects which have not been successful across the whole world over the past 20 years.
All right, is that all the follow-up questions?
Sorry, one more quick question. The renting, you rent private, the council buildings to businesses. How sort of competitive is this compared to the private sector? And also, what sort of businesses mainly occupy these sort of spaces? Are they startups? Are they big businesses? Are they technology businesses? Thank you.
So mixed papers next time will go into a lot of detail on that. But the first thing to say is that we only invest where the market is failing. So we would not expect to be competing with the private sector at all. Sometimes tactically what we will do is service land and then sell it on to the private sector, who can then develop it at a pace and a cost they couldn't otherwise have afforded. Most of our businesses are small local businesses, but we would like to bring, which I think is scheduled for September, a discussion with you about our letting and our sales strategies, because we benefit from having big internationals, but at the same time they might block out the small locals, and I think that will be quite a useful political debate to have. So at the moment, small and local, but we need to just keep kicking the tires on that.
All right, Councillor East.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Justin, any update on our actual high-tech development of Scampton?
No. Lots of meetings going on, lots of issues around ownership, and at this stage, a lot which is very much yet to be determined. And certainly Councillor Kelly and Councillor Bridgewood and I have had a number of conversations about Scampton and the role the council might play, but at the moment it's like a reset period.
Is that all for questions? Okay. I'll now like to invite Mr. McLean to deliver his presentation. Over to you.
Thank you. Okay, good morning everybody. I'm Andrew McLean, the Assistant Director for Corporate Transformation, Systems and Performance, and also the Interim Assistant Director for Corporate Property. I've been at the Council for 25 years this year, a range of roles and directorates. Currently in the Assistant Director role for the last 5 years and been supporting corporate property for the last 7 months. With me today I've got our property leads. I'll let them introduce themselves as they deliver part of this presentation moving forward. If we could move to the next slide please. Okay, so property sits within the Resources Directorate and oversees the end-to-end life cycle of the Council's assets. We focus this on three key areas: the think it, build it and manage it. So under Think It is our strategy team and our estates team who work closely with our schools, children's services, adult care, fire and rescue, place directorate and corporate teams to understand what are the future needs of those service areas so we can support the business moving forward. Under Build It is our professional and project teams who will ultimately carry out those key infrastructure projects, managing and coordinating the build, development, or indeed even demolition in some circumstances of our assets. And the Manage It, and that's our facilities and workspace management team who cover everything from filling the paper towels to fixing leaking toilets right through to overseeing the repairs of roofs, walls, drainage systems to ensure buildings are kept safe and also watertight, and also meet our compliance requirements. And like I said earlier, colleagues will give more information on that within the presentation. If we can move to the next slide, please. So this just gives you a quick snapshot to give some context of the breadth of the property estate, which requires a significant resource to ensure it remains fit for purpose. As you can see there, we have over 1,000 properties with 470 operational buildings, 423 schools, and over 16,000 acres of farmland. So quite a sizable asset portfolio that the council holds, covering the breadth of all those services and the whole of the county. If we could move to the next slide, please. So this just gives that estates overview in a little more detail, broken down by the different areas. As you can see, the 423 schools takes up a large proportion of that. Significant number of individual farms, 169 there. Fire service, 66 different properties. And then children's services, again, a large area of the 119, ranging from everything from children's homes through to family centres that support our most vulnerable families, right through to children's centres that support a universal offer to all families. Next slide, please. So this is our senior leadership team, just a little visual of who we are as a team. Marie and Mark are with us today. Dave unfortunately couldn't be with us, but we're joined by Tina, who will cover his part of the presentation. Move to the next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So this just gives you some high-level detail of what each service delivers. So say within the Think It, we've got that acquisitions, disposals, building it, designing, construction of those of sites, and managing it within the covering our statutory compliance, workspace management, repairs and maintenance. I won't go through those in detail as colleagues will soon run through this shortly. If we can move to the next slide, please. So we've recently implemented our new service delivery model from the 1st of April. This has seen a number of staff transfer back into the council, so we now directly run our estates function, and a number of professional services staff have transferred in also to provide a greater intelligent client model with those moving back in. We recently awarded our professional services contract to Kia and our facilities management to Vinci. Both of those started on the 1st of April. That's included an updated specification and performance requirements. So collectively with the team, working with our two key strategic providers, oversee those three services that the function deliver. Next slide, please. So it's a bit small on screen. We can share these afterwards. Just gives you a high-level overview of the contracts. So with Vinci delivering that facilities management and compliance activities, as well as undertaking some small capital works, that cost is around 8.8 million per annum. And Kia, our main contractor for professional services, with those professions that are listed there on the bottom right, to develop and design our capital building programme. Now, within the Kia contract, there's no guaranteed level of work within that, but based on historic spend, this is estimated to be around £2 million per annum. I'll now hand over to Mark, who will walk through in more detail the Strategic Asset Management Service.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Chair, for providing me the opportunity to speak today. Really appreciate that. My name is Mark Eyre. I'm Head of Strategic Asset Management and Estates within Corporate Property. Just a brief overview of my team. Happy to take any questions afterwards as well. We're responsible for the think it stage of the corporate property care cycle. Within that, a lot of strategic thinking to enable service delivery. So we actively engage with service teams to identify their property resourcing requirements, enabling effective delivery of their service within a context of a reducing estate. We have regular service representative liaison meetings, and we also engage through strategic asset management planning. So a good example of that, we're currently undertaking a program of work which is strategic it's service asset management plans. These basically write a blueprint for what our service colleagues need to be able to deliver their service over the next, say, 5 to 10 years. Always subject to change. There'll always be new things that come within that range, but it's a useful document to have, so we have a forward plan of activity which we can deliver. Within that, we will have identified work such as relocations of service buildings, enhancements of their properties where it might not be providing what they need, appropriate co-location with suitable partners or industry colleagues, sometimes even a disposal of a surplus property. So actively engaging to make sure that if it's not needed for a service, we don't hold a property for too long. Properties are categorised so that there's a clear direction of travel for each of them, so everybody is aware of what's the intention. And we have key outputs from that, which are improved utilisation and efficiency, capital investment, and also divestment over time. We're responsible for the creation of and management of a pipeline of property rationalisation activity as well. So this involves business case, conception, options appraisals, which will lead to opportunities for property disposals and to provide revenue savings, generate capital receipts so that that can be recycled into the central purse, but also then provide a fit-for-purpose estate, so we're not remaining in properties which are unsuitable. We are making sure that our services are having properties which are suitable for their needs to deliver. A report on this is due to come to your committee in the, I think at the next growth scrutiny, so should be able to bring that forward for review. I'd also like to touch on our corporate landlord model, which places responsibility of property management and related issues onto corporate property, so that we provide a consistent, safe and professional approach to property management. It just takes away that burden from service colleagues so that they get to focus on their skill expertise, which is service delivery. We focus on property, that's our resource commitment to them. If we move to the next slide, please. So the school's asset management service, that also focuses on supporting children's services. As we've said, there's a huge amount of property that's involved within that, varying degrees, varying sizes, locations. But we support colleagues and head teachers to move forward their agendas when it comes to school buildings and land. Key aspects include school master planning and suitability surveys, highlights areas for schemes such as send hubs, so always looking at suitability for new initiatives where we can have improved service for children so that educational needs are met. We also support schools with management obligations for their buildings, so providing assistance for their compliance and also ability to receive funding for building improvement enhancements. Finally, just to touch on our county farms estate, as Andrew said, it's a large estate, about 16,400 acres of land on small holdings, which a variety of agreement types, but we've got just over 100 tenants, with an average tenancy size of about 154 acres. We support our farming tenants extensively. Throughout the year, we provide property and industry advice and support, and we make sure that there's a key network available so that the challenges that they face, no matter how big or small, we are helping them. We also have a capital budget for available for our county farms estate, which we bid on it usually each year. That sets out improvements that will help our tenant farmers. So improved drainage to land, reducing impact of things like flooding, as was discussed earlier, and also improving productivity of that land. Solar panels on the roofs of some of our farm buildings as well, reducing their costs, and also grain stores being built, so it improves their operations. We're reviewing our county farm strategy, which was last published, I think, around 2015. So that is an activity which we're undertaking as a strategic guidance document, which will be hopefully finalised later this year. That's the end of my presentation. I'll hand over to Tina Shaw.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, councillors. My name is Tina Shaw, and I'm the Construction Programme Manager for the Capital Delivery and Professional Services team within Corporate Property, so the Build It arm. And it's my pleasure to be here today representing my Head of Service, Dave Pennington, to share with you the important work we do across the council. We're proud of the role we play in supporting the council's strategic objectives that Mark's just been talking through in the delivery of a broad and ambitious capital programme. And a programme that improves our estate, enhances service delivery, and ultimately will make a difference to the communities that we serve. Our work spans a wide variety of assets and service areas, from schools and children's homes to corporate offices, historic buildings, and highway depots. And the projects we deliver directly support those frontline services and underpin the infrastructure to enable the council to function and deliver services effectively. As you can see from the slide on screen, our current portfolio of project is both vast and diverse. At present, the team is actively managing 72 live projects across all the council directorates, with a combined programme value just under £173 million. These projects can vary very widely in scope and in scale, smaller schemes worth tens of thousands of pounds, all the way up to major capital investments involving many millions. The range of there on screen will illustrate the complexity and breadth of the council's property estate and the varying scale of those projects that we can deliver. A critical part of our success, very similar to Mark's team, lies with being very collaborative with our service areas and directorates. Our team works closely with service areas across the council to engage consistently through the life cycle of a project, which enables us to gain deep understanding of each project's specific service requirements, ensuring outcomes are not only technically sound from a building point of view, but they're also aligned with the expectations and needs of end users, whether they're council staff, school pupils, residents, or service users. As Andrew mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are fortunate to have a highly skilled in-house team comprising experienced project managers, quantity surveyors, and also clerk of works. This dedicated professional expertise is central to ensuring the successful delivery of our project. It allows us to maintain rigorous oversight at every stage through the process, from planning and design all the way through to construction and then ultimately handover of those buildings, ensuring that we can deliver consistently high outcomes and achieve value for money. In addition to our in-house team, we also work in close partnership with Kier Professional Services, whose specialist technical expertise complements our own internal capabilities. The collaborative approach strengthens our capacity to manage and deliver a complex and wide range of projects required for the council estates, effectively, efficiently, and to the highest professional standards. The next couple of slides I've got, we're just going to highlight a couple of examples of the projects our team delivers. So the first one there on screen is a project that we're delivering in conjunction with the Department for Education. This is a £79 million project delivering a new secure children's home in Sleaford. It's going to offer 28 beds. This project's been in conceptual design for a good couple of years now, and we hit site in September of last year and hopefully to complete in November in 2026. And then the facility eventually will open very early in 2027. This is quite a trailblazing project. It's the first one of its kind to be built. We've been all over the country to look at best practice for delivering this type of project along with the DFE. So a real good exemplar model that the DFE hopefully then can roll out across the country following this design. Next slide, please. So this slide, a little bit closer to home, is on campus here at Orchard House B. We've just recently, in March, finished the refurbishment of the building. It was a £5 million project that's enabled a lot of the rationalisation projects that Mark's looked at in conception to be delivered. And also our registration services are now housed in Orchard House B. So our weddings, registration of birth, deaths and marriages all take place in that building now. And the first wedding did take place on April the 1st as planned for the service. So that's all being delivered in that building. Next slide, please. This is an example of a schools project, again, recently completed. It's a new sixth form block at Welton William Farr Academy. It was a £2.1 million basic need project for children's services, which completed in April. This design looks a little bit different. You can see the ceiling is exposed, showing all the services. And this is really to help engage pupils in engineering and construction so they can actually see what goes on underneath the ceiling grid. They can look at the air handling units, lighting, ventilation, all those sorts of things to try and inspire some interest in construction. And then finally, it's a project that we're doing at our incredible Lincoln Castle. So we work with specialist heritage contractors who employed rope access techniques, which you can see on the picture there, to carry out a comprehensive defrost survey of the building to make sure that the walls were safe from any potential falling stone. And we also carried out some emergency repairs at the same time. As a scheduled ancient monument, the castle walls are in a constant state of natural decay, and these conservation efforts are the first of a phase of preservation works we hope to carry out on the castle to safeguard that heritage site for years to come. Thank you, that's all from me, and I'll pass over to Marie.
Just got one question. No. Okay, we'll just wait to the end for questions. Yeah, on to Marie.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. Thank you, Tina. I'm Marie Marriott. I'm the Head of Facilities and Workspace Management. I've actually been in the council since February, so relatively new to post. My team deliver the manager element of corporate property. So we're the kind of people that you would generally see in and around the buildings on a daily basis, delivering all those services around the sites. So we operate an intelligent client model, which means we have a very small team of professionals directly employed by the council. And what we seek to do is manage and deliver facilities management services through our partner, Vinci. We do this with regard to ensuring legal compliance and also ensuring that we get best value from that contract with that supplier. We have around 480 buildings that we provide these services to, varying things from essential statutory maintenance only to providing the full range of services from FM. We have a very diverse portfolio from officers to schools to, we also provide the facilities management for the castle, for example. In addition to providing the corporate portfolio and corporate landlord portfolio with service, we also provide services to 130 schools. Now, these are schools that aren't within our corporate landlord model. There's something that they can buy into this service as an additional opt-in service. What that helps them to do is ensure that they discharge their statutory and essential duties under maintenance of that property. This helps them keep compliant and also ensures a safe environment for the children at school. We deliver around about 1,000 planned maintenance activities every month, and we're doing so with 99.1% completion, and we're averaging very up in the high 90s every month consistently. We respond to 650 on average reactive maintenance activities. That can be anything from a request to resolve a small maintenance issue within one of the buildings to supporting on a major incident, and it can also be just for guidance and support from a statutory compliance perspective. We have a dedicated team who do look at our statutory compliance, which also includes fire, and we are making significant moves forward to kind of enhance that service to enable us to ensure that we are delivering all of the range of legal compliance requirements placed upon us. A lot of these actually originate from the Health and Safety at Work Act. We also manage capital repairs. We've got a capital repairs programme this year of 2.4 million. So my team also run those two projects, one via Vinci and one via Kia, supporting on some of the larger projects within that programme. And then on the next slide, please. This is just to demonstrate, Andrew did mention that we've recently embarked on a new relationship, so a new contract with Vinci. This is just to share with you what the enhancement has been in terms of response times. So this was one area that we were particularly focused on, was ensuring that we were getting to resolve people's issues more quickly than we had in the past. So these are the new resolution times from that contract. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Marie. Just finally, just wanted to set out some examples of the type of activity to expect to come through to the Growth Scrutiny Committee moving forward. So not an exhaustive list, just to give an idea. Tina earlier talked through some of the capital developments, so we'll bring those corporate capital developments through here to this Scrutiny Committee moving forward. We're also finalising our planned rationalisation programme, which Mark talked about, over the next 3 years, which again we'd look to bring here to the Scrutiny Committee before an executive decision, both to increase our capital receipts and reduce ongoing revenue expenditure. And any corporate disposals or acquisitions made outside of that programme would also come here in line with the Council's constitution. And Marie will also be bringing forward towards the end of this year around the 26-27 planned maintenance and repairs capital programme, again as a further pre-decision scrutiny committee. So welcome any questions. Thank you.
So we have first question from Councillor Corey.
Thank you. It might be a question for Marie, and apologies that you're so new in post, but welcome. I do want to thank the team for looking after Lincoln Castle with its resident dragons. Always a challenge. So going back to facilities management, and this is probably something that's going to come in future papers, but I think it makes obvious total sense to split those two contracts, the large capital builds and the refurbs of things like Orchard House, from the relatively low level and short lead time repairs like heating ducts. So, you know, in the grand scheme of your work programme, probably low priority, but for those colleagues using those buildings and for service users, high impact. So how are you going to monitor and how will we be able to support you through the scrutiny process to make sure that those numerous but short lead time facilities repairs and improvements are done quickly, so that we're not constantly falling victim to increasing prices which are outside our control and then impact on our ability to deliver those services and those repairs. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have like a prioritised approach to how we deal with any repairs and maintenance that's arising. So for the smaller items, we have a budget that we use as a run-of-the-mill budget to kind of address those issues at source before they become bigger issues and therefore more impactful from a cost and impact perspective. We also have the capital R&M programme which we run. Again, that's in a prioritised state, so we look to ensure first priority that all sites are wind and watertight, and then to ensure statutory compliance to make sure that they're safe. And then we move through the process of prioritising works in relation to their category, so whether or not they're urgent works, and moving them through our, we have an ongoing rolling programme where we attend the sites and do condition surveys. So we're continually capturing data about the properties so that we can respond to it. I hope that answers your question.
And Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. The government forced us to publish all expenditure over 500 quid. That applies to all local authorities. And I've got the list up here. Our payment to Vinci in the last quarter we only made one payment to Vinci. It was £1,596,885. The purpose of the expenditure over 500 quid is to give transparency and visibility to what the council is spending. How can I interrogate how that £1.5 million has been spent during the last quarter? And further on, I don't know if anyone mentioned Serco, apologies if I missed it, but we actually paid Serco nearer £2 million. I think £1.9 million we paid to Serco last time. Now, I recognise that Serco employ a lot of the staff that we see around, and they are part of the Lincolnshire County family, I'm sure. But in terms of interrogating what goes on at Serco, and in terms of us being able to manage what Serco and Vinci and Balfour Beatty and everybody else are doing to that, where's the transparency and openness for us as Scrutiny and also for people in Lincolnshire, and to what extent have we got it? Can you guarantee that we've got it all under control? Thank you.
So with regards to Vinci, which is a property contract, Serco's not linked to property, so can't really comment on that specifically with regards to Serco. But from a Vinci perspective, we have a range of contract management where we monitor costs, monitor activity that goes through, as oversight from an operational level through to myself and Marie meeting. We record and monitor their performance every pound that's spent. So as officers, we've got that detail in place. We've got the contract and the I suppose in supply management roles in place. We're supported by Vic's team and our commercial colleagues to make sure we've got some of that commercial robustness, to make sure that we're constantly reviewing the contract and challenging to make sure they perform within the contract. So lessons learned as well previously. From your own role in understanding that, I think that's something for the Scrutiny Committee to make recommendations on around how we present back to you around the performance of both Vinci and Kia.
Well, in terms of scrutiny, certainly I'd like access to numbers which are smaller than £1.5 million per quarter. I'm pleased that officers are looking at it, but in terms of members, whether it's executive members or scrutiny or anybody else, that doesn't look like a very transparent figure from here. And if you're not talking about, the presentation was on property, who does talk about Serco?
Vic.
I think that would be me. Thank you. Absolutely same process. Obviously, we've got Serco covering our exiting IT service at the moment, and they're currently providing our customer service centre. So typically, we go through a very similar process, review all costs that we expect to pay. They send an invoice which we match. It is not broken down to probably the level that you are wanting, but it's agreed on what is contractually required to be spent to be sent in. That's reviewed. We then pay an invoice subject to us approving it. That includes any service credits that were owed, and that's taken off and things like that. So we go through a very robust process relating to Serco as well.
Councillor Kelly, would you like to have an input?
Yes, Councillor. Councillor Baxter, obviously the items that you're referring to were under your stewardship last time in regards to not necessarily yourselves, but the Conservative Council. Going forward, though, however, I'll just reiterate that the due diligence processes, the value for money processes, the supplier selection process, all of those transparent activities that do take place and that should take place are currently under review, and there will be changes where required going forward to ensure that the council taxpayer in Lincolnshire is getting value for money, and that all of those activities will be transparent so that they can be scrutinised accordingly. And like you, I am very keen for all of those processes to be done so that we can challenge them where required to ensure that we are providing best value for money for the Lincolnshire County Council taxpayers. Thank you.
Do you want to just finish, Councillor Baxter?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, please don't blame me for the mess left behind.
I don't.
But in terms of for example, the Serco contract, I think it runs till 2029. So, no?
No, The part of it, the customer service centre, I believe runs for a period of time, but we're currently exiting the IT services by March 26th.
Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, just reiterating the Serco contract there, Councillor Baxter. Yeah, there have been challenges with that, and as I'm sure you can imagine, we are new in the chair, so to speak. But you know, we're running where we can do in order to ensure value for money for the council taxpayers, and the contracting arrangements going forward, and the levels of flexibility it affords the council, and the value for money it provides the council taxpayer, and the return we get from it, and other efficiencies we're able to identify from it that benefit the council and the council taxpayer are quite significant. But again, there's been a good review process in regards to the Serco contract and the replacement contract. And you know, it is good quality and good value for money, and myself and others have been all over it with the council team, Tom and his team, for hours scrutinising all aspects of it to ensure transparency, to ensure good due diligence, and to ensure good value for money. Thank you.
Councillor Dyer.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I must say, when I found that property was going to be on this committee, I was quite excited, because in my 4 years on the council, when you speak to officers from an array of departments, doesn't matter what service area, if you talk to them about their problems, property is always mentioned. So this is either your chance to prove them wrong or for them to be proven right. And I look forward to this opportunity. And to be honest, Councillor Kelly, what you just said, I'm quite excited for that due diligence to be carried out as well, because what Councillor Baxter said was basically one of my questions, because my question was, how much would it cost to change a light bulb or paint a wall? That's all I want to know, just a regular light bulb in an office building, maybe this building, how much would it cost the taxpayer? So that's what I wanted to know. So if you could respond to that or email, that'd be appreciated. But I do have a few more questions as well. At the start of your presentation, Andrew, you mentioned that the council has 54 vacant properties that either are not used, they're going to be sold or to be repurposed. Where are they? Can you provide a list to this committee, please? In respect to workspace management, I know that the administration during the election made a point about bringing all staff back into the office permanently. What would the cost implications be to ensure that the Lincolnshire County Council had the capacity to bring every single member of staff back into the office 5 days a week? Can that please be provided to the committee? In respect to the comment about reviewing the county farm strategy, I think hopefully finished was the phrase used. I've put that in quotation marks. Hopefully finished doesn't say, it isn't very reassuring to me. It sounds like there's maybe a bit of uncertainty there. So I just want to know, when will that strategy be finished, and when will this committee get to see and review that strategy, please? I trust that we will have that opportunity before it's completed. And I'd be curious to know if you could outline at this stage what the headline changes would be to that strategy. Tina, within your report, you presented information about the capital programme that the council's undertaking, various very nice shiny buildings and what appeared to be a half-finished sixth form block, but you've assured me that it was supposed to not have a ceiling. My question would be, the administration during the election made a number of political points repeatedly, over and over again, about Lincolnshire County Council having X amount of debt. Many of these, sorry, my phone's ringing. Many of these capital programmes, but not all of them, can be funded through prudential borrowing and then paid back sensibly over a period of time. My question would be to you, has the election promises of the new administration changed the operation of your team in respect to our ability to deliver any capital programmes? Because I assume if they're going to cut borrowing, we either borrow that money internally or we don't borrow it at all. So how would that impact your ability to deliver the capital programme? And finally, Chairman, Orchard House B, the ceremony centre, the photograph that was also reported, I find it a remarkably ugly building. I let the previous portfolio holder know my thoughts on it and the courtyard outside of that. I'm just wondering whether we can go and have a look after committee today, or at another point have a tour around that building and hopefully be proven wrong that the photographs don't do it justice, because I would quite like a tour of that and the courtyard outside if possible, please. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so first question about light bulbs. How much does it cost to change a light bulb? Would anyone like to?
I'll take that one, thank you. I'm going to have to come back to you. Every light bulb in every building is going to be different, and every cost will be different. I can't give you a figure right here, right now. I can try and find an average if you want to pick a particular building.
Let's just say a light bulb out in the corridor.
Okay.
In County Hall, outside the leader's office. How much would it change to replace a light bulb there? That would be...
Okay, I'll find out and come back to you. Thank you.
And then we had about the 50 vacant properties, right? 54 vacant properties.
Yeah, we'll bring that into the rationalisation paper. So the programme where we look to put forward the proposals for the disposals over the next 3 years, the capital receipts, will build that into that. So it identifies what's currently vacant, what's still occupied but due to be vacant, or is still occupied but as part of the SAMP process that Mark talked about might be available in the future. So that will form part of that paper. We'll make sure it's included in there, the breakdown of that categorisation, and list them so you can see clearly. We'll have that available.
Okay, and then strategy. You want to see the strategy?
Is that the county farm strategy question, I think? Yeah. Mark, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, sorry I wasn't very clear in my estimations of timescale, but expectation it would be sort of for the autumn cycle, so probably around sort of September time it would be ready for review, and we can bring it to this committee. That's an expectation that it would be scrutinised.
Sorry, just so we're clear, so we can bring it to the committee.
Yeah.
Are you definitely bringing it to the committee? And if you're not bringing it to the committee, can I request that it does come to the committee, please, Chairman?
We can, yeah, it can be brought to the committee if that's the request. That's.
Yeah, our intention would be to bring it to the committee. Yeah, absolutely.
And within that, it's the management approach we take to the estate. So looking at the support that we give to the farmers as the tenants as well. So sort of, I mentioned the capital programme. We'd have sort of reference to that. I'd mention as well sort of our approach to holding sizes as well within that. So we're basically kind of guiding a principle of estate management, which takes a modern view of some of the issues, the modern issues that are being encountered by farmers. So going back to that strategy last being drafted in 2015, the issues have changed since then. So we need to be able to have a strategy which supports them within that.
And will that include the relationship with Savills as well?
We've got a contract with Savile which is due for renewal, so that is it's still got time to run, but that procurement is something that's on our procurement cycle. So we'll have that as part of a sort of a strategy that will have a commitment to when that goes out live for review and retender.
We will build the details of the Savills contract into the paper for complete oversight of what's delivered as part of the county farms, when the contract's due to end, and our procurement approach. So I'll have that in there.
Does that answer all your questions?
There was the Orchard House B Ugly Tour, I think, as it was referred to. I think it's quite. We get very positive feedback from staff being based in there. I can assure you of that. But absolutely happy to offer the Scrutiny Committee a guided tour of that. We can work with Democratic Services to arrange that, and have some of the managers who oversaw the construction to walk you through that, if that's something that's wanted. And then I think there was a question around election promises. That's not something I think as officers can comment on. In terms of Tina's team and our capital build, we're continuing with our capital programme.
I fully respect that, Andrew. I suppose my question would be then, the programme that you are continuing with, does that involve borrowing from the Public Works Loan Board or whoever to fund these capital projects? And if so, what would the value of that be over the next 4-year council term? We'll use that.
Not something I have to hand, but can get away the figures and share with the committee.
You haven't answered my first point, though, in respect. So this is borrowing from the Public Works Loan Board? Is that, or is
I'd
that something you also don't
that's
have
the
to
thing
hand?
I'd have to clarify exactly
Okay.
where all the funds for the capital programme come from. It can be a mix of funds depending on each construction project that's in situ at the moment. Like Tina touched on earlier, some are heavily funded by the DFE, like with the and such. So we can get that clarification for you.
Yeah, if that could be provided, please. That'd be appreciated. Thank you.
I believe we had a question from Councillor Condell.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer has always answered it for me, so I don't need to follow up.
And Councillor East.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to transparency again, I'm assuming that the Kier and the Vinci contracts are driven by KPIs. Is that something that we're going to see, the targets that they achieve or don't achieve?
Yes, certainly there's a whole list of KPIs within each of those contracts. That might be something for how, as officers, we bring the performance of those on an annual basis of how the contracts are performing. It's something that's been done in the past, so we can look to build that in and work with the committee on.
Councillor Kelly.
Councillor Dyer, in regards to the light bulbs, I completely understand you're using that vehicle, that scenario, to establish costs, etc., which is, you know, and rightly so as well. But I wouldn't like all the council staff to be running around all the buildings to cost up how much it costs to change a light bulb, because I think that may be, you know, not a good use of our resources, so to speak. However, we will provide a cost accordingly. In regards to buildings and the portfolio of buildings and such like, there are, you know, we are reviewing the portfolio of buildings to ensure that we maximise the opportunities and revenues that those buildings bring into the council, whilst also looking at the maintenance costs, etc., for keeping them. So we will be conducting detailed reviews, cost-benefit analysis, so to speak, of the buildings portfolio to identify and firm up a strategy going forward that always has the best interests of Lincolnshire at its core, and ensuring we have best value for money. Over many years now, many of those buildings have remained dilapidated, etc., costing the council taxpayers money. So we just need to make sure that we're smarter in our approach to the management of the buildings portfolio and such like, so that we optimise the return to the council and to the county. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Kelly. Just to reiterate, in case my point wasn't clear, I wasn't asking for a cost of every single light bulb under the portfolio. It's to change one light bulb outside the leader's office in County Hall. That's all I'm asking for, Chairman.
Are there any more questions? Councillor Robinson.
Is there anybody in your team who specifically manages the finances, specifically regarding bang for buck? And also, you spoke about condition surveyors who go around. Are these surveyors experts in their field? I.e., are they builders? Are they real people who know the costings and everything? Or are they, or do they contractors kind of dictate to you like how much things cost, and you kind of work out through yourselves? Thank you.
In terms of the budgets, each head of service is a budget owner, so manages the budgets and forecasts them each month. So we start our budget and forecasting cycle this month with forecasts to go in. So, like I say, so Marie, Mark, Dave, and myself are all budget holders. So, using our Business World system, run that, understand costs, run multiple reports, see how that compares against expected costs that come through, and build in that forecast. So, and that's across revenue and capital. We work extremely closely with finance colleagues as well as part of that. To get that due diligence and challenge, and do internal challenge amongst ourselves as well, to make sure we're able to forecast as accurately as possible. And then from a capital perspective, work closely with finance around where we need to draw down funds to support objectives and prioritise and such. So yeah, as officers, we do that directly. In terms of the surveys, we will use professionals in them, depending on the type of survey that's required. So bringing in professionals for a demolition, which might have masses of asbestos, could be attached to a grade 2 listed building, all need a specialist and professional advice in that front, right through to digging up groundworks in a former military site, which could have all sorts underneath it, again, as a different specialist. So depending on the nature of it, might direct, or heritage sites like the castle needs, again, something different. So we do work with Kia, who have got access to those across the country. Some of them are very specialist. You can only get few individuals to carry it out, so that gives us that opportunity to do so, versus others that might be more general, where we can go to a local construction partner who can give us a more general briefing on that, but tend to use a professional services using the existing networks and construction contractors that we have.
So just to be clear, sometimes the contractors are in charge of giving you the price.
Not necessarily the contractor who would deliver the works, just a contractor who can give us depends if there's a detailed survey right through to, as point of a conception of an idea, what might you look to do, right through to moving it forward to this is something we want to move forward politically, and as a senior officers and now need I suppose a deep delve assessment pending on what it is. So it can vary depending on what stage the question's being asked. I might want to do that over there with a day centre versus we want to demolish this and rebuild would be two different approaches. So make sure it's scalable in terms of who we contact at the time.
Are there any more questions? Okay. Would we like to take a 5-minute break? No? Okay, we'll continue. Thank you for your presentations, guys. On to the next part. Tourism. Miss Eaton.
Yeah, I think I'm just doing the final presentation on commercial. I think we've touched on a little bit already. So, pleased to meet everyone. My name is Victoria Eaton. I'm the Assistant Director for Commercial. And just because everyone else did it, I've been here about 18 months. So I'm going to say still relatively new, but not the newest in the room. So I'm going to give you a brief summary of what we do. We're slightly different service to the previous presentations because we're sort of more of a back office enabler function, enabling our colleagues on the front line to deliver their services. If you could move on, please, in terms of slides. We obviously do all commercial activity. I think the ones you'll be most probably have heard about are procurement and contract management, but I really want to make it clear that's not what we do. A really key focus and important part of everything that we do is deliver value for money and services, and I'm sure we've picked up some of the contracts where you have questioned some of that already. So we do that via obviously strategic procurement, our partnerships that we have with the suppliers, partners, and I guess really importantly for this particular scrutiny committee, our large buying power will influence what we can do with the economy and growth. We have commercial, really strong contract management activity. We don't cover every contract within the council, but we certainly focus on the big ones that we've talked about this morning. Our commercial services are very much about generating value, ensuring that long-term sustainability, and again, we have a really to drive efficiency. If we can move on, please. Just to sort of set the scene, we don't just do procurement. I think there is a feeling that we do. We've got a very professional, skilled team focusing on lots of activity. Some stuff we've talked about this morning in terms of market oversight. Are we, paying in line with markets? What are our markets in Lincolnshire? Where we've got gaps in terms of services and suppliers that can deliver some of the key services we need. We obviously do the procurement, which I think is the process bit, but really important in terms of getting those contracts in place that suit our needs. Then there's the ongoing performance and contract and supplier management, which is an area we are improving on. And we've got some really good practice, but we need to make that consistent across the whole of our contract portfolio. We tentatively do some activities around income generation and commercial opportunities. It's an area we need to look at in growth. This is something we need to probably look at in the future of this scrutiny committee. One thing that I don't think we get much, we don't shout about is some of the negotiation skills and some of the brokerage, really negotiating down some of the prices we pay and some of the services where we're restricted in our adult social care and brokering some better deals. We have obviously got to comply with the transparency and legal framework. I will talk about some of our transparency commitments later on in the slide deck, which I think will probably meet some of the questions that you have around what we have to share. And obviously a big thing we do is drive value for money, and we do ensure that we deliver savings to the council. So I'm flying solo today. If we can move on, please. And I've got two heads of service, supported by a brilliant team. And we cover two areas of focus, really. One area is called infrastructure, which is covering all the commercial activity and the resources, a lot in place, fire and the corporate directorate. We also provide commercial services to our districts and, in the short term, to the combined authority. Obviously, that's new, and we've not done anything yet, but we will be doing in the not too distant future. We run a very category-focused delivery in terms of, focusing on ICT, corporate activities, and categories to support place. Alina heads up our people services, which is very much focused on supporting our adult care and community wellbeing, the largest spend area in the council. So we have a vast array of contracts that we do, very interesting market to manage our commercial dealings with. So really strong team, lots of professional skills. We've got contract managers, procurement experts, strong negotiators and subject matter experts that we use for the brokerage and negotiation. Next slide, please. This is a really, really summary, and I'm sure you'll want to probe into this in due course at some point. But this is to give you give you a flavour, and obviously it's only relevant on the day we pull it off. But we've got about 650 live contracts, probably from the really big, juicy stuff that you're all interested in to very small contracts. Value is around 3 billion of those contracts. That doesn't mean we're committed to spending that. That's just the contract value, which is an important difference. We've got 90 contracts that are over 2 million in value, but that covers all the council, the range of services we provide, from those back office functions to the services we have in fire, the road maintenance contracts, etc., etc. We've got 130 active procurements on our books at the moment, with a total estimated contract spend about 3.1 billion. Again, that's not what we're committed to. That's just potentially what those contracts will allow us to spend up to. And we do have a forward-look pipeline, which we are looking to put on the website in the not-too-distant future after I've shared it with our portfolio holder, which covers a range of different services and some big stuff and some small stuff. So very much linked to how we can support the growth in the local areas by sharing that forward-look pipeline. If we could move on, please. This is, I guess, the boring bit, but maybe the most important bit is we do have within any public procurement quite an onerous governance framework that we need to be adhere to, and we'll happily provide more detail on this in due course in terms of what we can and can't do. So obviously this is, and there's more than this, I've just put some four things on here. We've obviously got the Constitution, which sets out how we can govern ourselves. We've got a document called the Contract and Procurement Procedure Rules, CPPRs, which sets out our details with what we as officers can and can't do in terms of contracting. But the ones that I guess are the most interesting are the legal framework that we sit in. So February this year, it was an exciting time for some commercial geeks of us when the Procurement Act 2023 actually came into law, and we are now governed by this framework and this legal framework, which sets out how we have to conduct ourselves in terms of our commercial activity. And in here, there's some really interesting things that I think are pertinent to the discussion this morning. Very much about flexibility of our procurement processes. I think we've often in the past, we're not very open, we're quite bureaucratic, make it very difficult. So the barriers to entry are there. This Act will allow us to be much more flexible and much more innovative in the way we do procurement. And allow sort of smaller, more local suppliers, if that's where we want to go, to bid for work and get access to the council's buying power. In there as well, there's particular new innovations around, not innovations, transparency, and where there's much more transparent obligations on us as a local authority moving forward. So we will have to publish all contracts over £5 million that are under the new Act, and they will be open for, I guess, the transparency scrutiny that we've which we've talked about this morning. They obviously will be redacted, and obviously we can't publish commercially sensitive information, but those contracts will be published. Similarly, any payments over £30,000 will have to be published, and prompt payment will also have to be published. Now, they're coming later in the year. Sony went live in February, so we're still going through that transition and implementation. We're waiting guidance from central government in terms of when those particular activities need to be done, but we will have to be more transparent than we are. Key point there is only for contracts that have been let after February. So some of the recent ones, particularly IT services, which we've mentioned, will fall still under the existing regulations, which is the public contract regulations. So we might not have to do it. We don't have to legally do some of that publications because that went into those acts. But anything now, moving forward, will have to follow those rules. Got a question? Do you want me to keep going and then ask at the end? I'm happy. Is that okay? So we've got two legal regime at the moment. So when we talk about transparency, we are limited in terms of what we can publish under the contract regulations. But as I said, moving forward, we'll have much more. We'll have to be much more transparent. So that's the legal framework. There are obviously lots more to that in terms of how timescales, thresholds, and things like that. But probably not for today's session. You've moved on already. Thank you. In terms of one thing that I'll definitely be coming back to the Scrutiny Committee in is at the moment we don't have a strategy in terms of commercial. So we have drafted something that we will be coming for decision later in the year. And these are the key principles, all to be decided and all to be agreed on. So this is just a sort of flavour, a bit of a tease really in terms of what we want to do in our commercial strategy. So obviously deliver value for money up and centre of what we need to do as a local authority. Innovative. Where this adds benefits, I think we need to be more innovative in what we do and how we buy, so that'll be something that is up front of the commercial strategy. Locally driven with councils at the heart of decision making, I'm sure you'll all agree to that. And I guess the big one for the Scrutiny Committee is the champion of Lincolnshire's economy, environment and community. So obviously that might change, but we will come back through the scrutiny in terms of that strategy. I'm on the wind up now, you'll be pleased to know. So a couple of commercial priorities which are sort of set within our strategy is absolutely we need to be effective at delivering commercial activity. We need to have local participation in small to medium enterprises. We need to continuously improve our contracts and supplier management. So the performance that you were mentioning, plus also our supply chain management. And we've not just got those prime suppliers, we've got a range of suppliers within our supply chain, which we need to be ensuring are delivering. We need to streamline our processes and documentation. I think I've heard that many times before, so we're continuing to do that. And obviously, we've got to focus on the profession and make sure we've got the right commercial skills doing the right commercial things. And then finally, I think I've got two more slides. So commercial and growth, we, I think, absolutely can play a critical role in advancing growth. We, as I've said at the beginning, the procurement of goods and services can stimulate demand, create jobs, and support key sectors. So I anticipate we'll come back and talk to you about what we're doing. We need to be more innovative, so we can encourage suppliers developing solutions. Startups, scale-ups and things like that I can see that we're delivering in terms of our activity, and obviously lowering the barriers to SMEs to promote growth, and what can we use SMEs in our supply chain. And actually we're doing really close working with Justin's team in terms of the growth agenda, working with their partners in terms of promoting some of the activity we do. And then finally, in terms of scrutiny themes, these are the proposed items, a little bit light, but in terms of we will be coming back on the 9th of September in Turkey talking about what we've done to implement the new procurement legislation, but also how we're engaging with SMEs in terms of reporting back in terms of our action plan, and then I've mentioned the commercial strategy. So those will be the key items for us. Open to questions.
Okay, any questions? We had one from Councillor Corey.
Yes, very, very informal. Got a question from Corey. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's what he calls me. Thank you for your presentation, Victoria. And as we've heard this morning, the work of running a council is never done. there are always changes, always improvements, always looking for ways of innovating and saving money, and also spending money. And we're also open and responsive to scrutiny and new ideas from whichever side of the chamber they come from. So I want to take you back to income generation and how your team works with Marie's team. So when prioritising works, including relatively minor repairs, you can gather from my series of questions that when I was a portfolio holder, this was, you know, quite a niggle of mine. How much weighting is given to income generation, and how do your two teams liaise on this? So, because this ability to generate revenue can be a lifeline to some services, particularly culture services venues, libraries, Usher Gallery, that kind of thing. Might not be, you know, on the big scheme of things like Orchard House B, but on a very small level, it can be vital to the future of that service or that venue. Thank you.
So, answering for Marie, we haven't had that conversation about income generation services, facilities management. It is, I will say just for me, I've not actively done a huge amount on really progressing income, because I think we had some contracts we need to sort out first, but it's something on in terms of the commercial strategy where I want to get to. We do have some income generation contracts. We obviously have the energy from waste. We also have some frameworks we've set up.
Just get you out of a hole. That wasn't your income generation, the ability of a venue or a service to generate income, to make it sustainable. For example, a cultural or heritage services venue may have to have some relatively minor repairs to make sure that then it can generate an income and sustain its services without being a drain on the wider council tax base of the council. So something that's relatively minor, like moving a radiator or a heating duct, relatively minor in the massive scheme of things, but to that service, to that venue, that could be the difference between it being a financially sustainable venue and not. So how do you two work together, and what's that weighting?
Okay, I'm passing over.
Yeah, so this is probably one for me. So all the heritage sites and any of the income generating sites are flagged on our CAFM system, which is the computer system that basically holds every piece of information about every property in the portfolio. We use that CAFM system to drive our help desk. So when a call comes in to our partner Vinci, to the Property Service Centre, there is a flag to that team to let them know that this is one of the heritage sites or one of the sites that's open to the public as well. So we also have a number of different categories within there, but in answer to that, yes, we are able to see when those calls come through and they are progressed as quickly as we possibly can. So the complexity, it may seem something very relatively simple at the time, but the complexity of some of those buildings can be a challenge as well to undertake the work, which may make you feel that there is a delay. But those buildings are flagged so that we are aware that that issue is within one of those buildings.
Thank you. And in this new bright new world of scrutiny that we find ourselves in, can we see that? How can we check that, either individually or strategically, that these flags are actually picked up with a certain window, and what impact they're having on that service delivery of the venue or the service?
Certainly that's part of our ongoing contract management with the provider. So we have officers who check that, manage that on a day-to-day basis, and that forms part of the contract management with the supplier. And then we have regular meetings with CLT where we feed back. So certainly we get it back from the service as well if they weren't feeling. So we engage with the relevant heads of service, assistant directors, directors within that area to make sure from their perspective they're seeing that those remedial works take place so as not to affect the income generated by those cultural sites that have people in there. So we do manage it. There's thousands come through. They're flagged up just in the same way. If there's something where there's people resident, like a children's home, you know, we've got to fix it. So we have those flags and alerts on there so that we respond. because again, it has not just the ability to receive income, its reputation, TripAdvisor reviews, things like that can all be impacted. So we do monitor that through that, and that's where we're from the earlier discussion. We say that annual review of how the contracts are performing. We can bring some of that data to the committee, so you've got an oversight of it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? Okay, moving on. Yeah. So on to the suggested proposal, and I will include Councillor Dyer's formal proposal. I move that the committee endorses the presentations and verbal updates received. I further move that members' initial comments and questions be noted as a constructive starting point for shaping our scrutiny work this term. I propose officers continue to support the committee's development through regular updates on key areas of growth, and then to implement the formal request that the county farm strategy be brought to the committee at the earliest opportunity. Would you like to speak on that, Councillor Dyer?
Chairman, could I just also ask and just request rewinding probably about an hour or so on the promise that Justin made in respect to scrutiny of the mayoral combined authority? I appreciate you might not be in a position, Justin, to put a formal report together, but if we could have a verbal update at the committee meeting on the 29th of July with a view, if something has emerged, that can be agreed at the full council in September. Are we okay to also request a verbal update on that as well, Chairman?
Would you like to have a few words and then?
I said I'd do it, I'll take it away and do it, and yeah, it'll either be verbal because we're not ready yet, or it'll be a paper. Yeah.
Okay, so adding the verbal, I guess, presentation on the combined authority and Lincolnshire County Council's role together in this committee to be added to the next agenda. Okay, so we'll have a raise of hands for who accepts this proposal. And any dissent? Abstentions? No, that's 7-4. 7 votes for. Which, so that means, thank you, that is agreed. And let the record reflect the 7 people who voted yes. So this leads us on to the Growth Scrutiny Committee work programme. And this is the last item on today's agenda, and the report can be found on pages 25 to 30 of the agenda pack. This item enables the committee to comment on the content of its work programme, and it will be presented by Chiara Hatsioani, the scrutiny officer. Our actions are to review the work programme and highlight any additional scrutiny activity which could be included for consideration in the work programme. So over to you, Chiara.
Thank you, Chairman. The draft work programme for the Growth Scrutiny Committee outlines a forward plan of activity for 2025-2026 council year, and it aligns with the committee's revised remit following the decommissioning of the former Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee. The work programme includes a balance of pre-decision scrutiny, policy development and performance monitoring, with items scheduled to support the economic growth and place-based environment development. There are plenty of key themes planned for the year ahead of us. I'm not going to go into further detail as you've all had a chance to engage with the report. I would just like to add that a caveat to this programme is the introduction of new items identified from today's meeting, and I will work with officers to make sure that we bring these forward at the earliest opportunity. And just to remind everyone that this is a living document, and you're more than welcome to engage with us directly, even offline, into introducing topics and themes that you wish to see further scrutiny on in the next year and beyond that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now I'd like to invite members of the committee to make any relevant statements or ask any questions regarding this agenda item. Okay, and then we'll move forward with the proposal. Okay, so I move that we note the reports and approve the existing work programme as detailed in pages 25 to 30, and the changes made about the county farm strategy and the mayoral authority as well. And do we have votes for? And against? Abstentions? Okay. So the motion passes with 7 votes for, and let the record reflect that. Which brings us to the end of the meeting, so thank you all for coming and presenting and taking part in the scrutiny. The business of the first growth meeting has concluded, and yeah, thank you.